Hey, this is Aaron Fink from Grapple City Rewind. If you like what you hear on this episode, give a follow, leave a review, cut a promo on us, anything goes. It'll go a long way in helping us to be discovered by more wrestling fans like you. All right, let's cue the music.
Hello and welcome to Grapple City Rewind, taking you all the way back to the iconic pay-per-views that shaped wrestling history. I'm Bradley Palermo, along with Aaron Fink, and today we will be getting into the NWA/WCW's 1989 event, the Great American Bash, also known as Great American Bash Glory Days. It took place in Baltimore Arena in Baltimore, Maryland, on, I believe, July 23rd of that year. It was full of lots of blonde mullets and had a championship match between Funk and Rick Flair, and it even had a War Games match and a Paul E. Dangerously versus Jim Cornette tuxedo match. Paul E., of course, being who we call Paul Heyman today. A lot of fun. Leave us a call, leave us a message on our machines anytime, day or night, 626-657-SLAM. That's the phone number where you can call and cut a promo on us, 626-657-SLAM. You can always contact us via email, grapplecitypod@gmail.com, or find us across social media at grapplecitypod. Aaron, before we go down memory lane, perhaps we talk a little bit about the current product. After all, the Elimination Chamber, WWE's Elimination Chamber, was this past weekend. Did you get a chance to check that out?
I did, I wonder if there's anything to talk about. What could we possibly talk about from Elimination Chamber, I wonder?
What do you want to talk about?
So actually, what I'll say about the show as a whole, I thought it was an excellent pay-per-view, an excellent premium live event for WWE. Every match was entertaining. I will say, I wasn't as invested in every single match as I was others, but as a whole, excellent show. Lots of surprises, lots of exciting moments, which is what WWE is in the business of creating. So I feel like it was a success on all fronts, and not to mention the big news coming out of Elimination Chamber, which is that John Cena has turned heel for the first time in his career. And I can say from my side, I had thought about it. You and I both consume a lot of wrestling media, as I'm sure all of our listeners do. And it was a topic of discussion, but it was usually an unlikely topic. Most people couldn't really wrap their heads around the fact that this would be something that would actually happen after Cena being a good guy for 20 plus years of his 25-year career. So it was an excellent moment. I was shocked. I think I stood up off my couch and was just like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, holy shit, they're doing it. That's amazing. I just got to say, props to WWE Creative, props to John Cena, props to everybody who felt like this was an okay thing to do. It takes a lot of guts to do what they're about to do right now. And as a fan, I'm just ready to strap in and go along for the ride.
I feel like John Cena, he started as a heel, right? Briefly before I don't remember it or anything, but
very early on. I mean, he was still trying to find his footing in the WWE at the time. It was 2002, right. 2003. He was I think he was kind of heelish when he was the Doctor of Thugonomics. So, right. But once he became who we all know him as, he was never anything other than that.
Right. And his fan base is made up of cognitively disabled preteen boys. And his gimmick is, I guess the best way to describe it is fucking dork. So how will he turn into a heel being a fucking dork that, only appeals to these sort of ill children?
Well, he's had all
John
kinds
Cena,
of fan. I'm shocked. I couldn't tell. I think that I have every belief that he's going to do a good job. I think that he was force fed down viewers' throats for many years, just like Roman was before Roman became the tribal chief. And
Yeah.
that can leave a bad taste in, the smarter adult fans' mouths. Us, you and I included. I didn't like him either when he was having his run. I really wasn't a fan. But as I've gotten older, I've come to respect what he did for the company and what he did
Mhm.
for business in general.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't like the character and it wasn't marketed towards me, right? We weren't, like you said, I know
Right.
you were joking, but his target audience was teenagers, preteens, the younger demographic of the WWE audience. And so now all of those kids are in their late 20s and they understand how
Right.
the world works. And so I think it's probably really fun for them. I'm sure some of them are shocked beyond
Yeah.
belief, but
It's
I think
their
it's going to be
sort of like
fun.
Hogan 1996 Bash of the Beach sort of
Yeah,
moment.
yeah. Which is what everyone's comparing it to, and I can see how you would make that comparison. What
Right.
I'm excited about though is I know what I know about John Cena is that he takes his work very seriously. And there was a time in 2012, I believe, where he was going to go and make a heel turn, become a bad guy when he was going to face The Rock at WrestleMania. But I
Mm-hmm.
guess that got changed at the last moment. But he was ready. He had a plan. He had
Yeah.
gear. He had a song. And the way that he talks about what that could have been like makes
Right.
me excited for what this is going to be like. Because if he does what he said he was going to do back then, he's going to be the
Yeah.
exact opposite of what he's always been. And that's how
Right.
you make a truly compelling bad guy is you take all the good stuff away and then you just hate him.
Yeah, I wonder. You read that book? I think you recommended it to me, right? The Brian Gewirtz book.
Yeah, I can't remember
About
the
the
title because
Educator. The W. I think it's just, there's just one thing, and there's just one more problem, or something of that effect. But yeah, there was a lot of that stuff between Cena and The Rock, sort of riffing off of one another, but they would kind of hurt each other's feelings at the same time during that feud. And so, I mean, it's good that he ends his career with someone that he's historically attached to, The Rock. Um, but I do get tired of these old guys. Like, we have really good current wrestlers, and these old guys kind of come back, these glory hogs for WrestleMania, and they kind of
Yeah.
insert themselves into the storyline. John Cena's been jobbing for like new guys for years, right? And lost to Austin Theory and all this stuff, and he looks
Yeah.
like that sort of, who's that guy that played Ernest and like Ernest Goes to College and all that stuff?
I think his name is Ernest, isn't it?
Yeah, he
I
looks
don't
like
know.
Ernest, and it's like,
Well, but they made it part of they made his 2000 something days part of the story. I feel like I understand what you're saying. I'm not
yeah,
disagreeing with you that like there will always be when someone who has no longer a full timer comes back, there will always be a segment of the audience that are I think entitled to feel that other people deserve the time that they're getting. I
yeah. And
totally
Cena's
get that.
never really gone away, right? He always pops up when it's a big show.
I mean,
There's never been a year where he hasn't wrestled.
I suppose he does show up pretty often, but I guess why I'm not feeling that way in this particular instance is because they're going to do something different, right? If it was him just coming back for the last year of his career and just doing the nostalgia greatest hits tour, I
Yeah,
probably would be annoyed, but this makes me excited because at least I get to see something different.
yeah. I think I would like to see someone who's the same age as Cena. CM Punk finally get his WrestleMania moment. So maybe that was part of my disappointment as well.
Sure, I was mad too. I really wanted Punk to win, but he just keeps saying in interviews like I don't know if I actually need to main event WrestleMania anymore. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
stop, keep the dream alive for me because that's what I want.
That's what I want. I went to see this match, the Elimination Chamber, at this sort of immersive venue called Cosm
Mm-hmm.
in Los Angeles last night,
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is kind of like going to watch a wrestling match in a IMAX theater of sorts. You have a server. You're kind of like in a fancy movie theater. It's
Mm-hmm.
meant to make you feel like you're actually there, which it doesn't really make you feel like you're there.
But it like drew you in, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
you felt focused and immersed.
They have 4 of their own hard cams there, and they're like ringside
Oh,
seats. So So you're watching it, and you can watch what's going on the broadcast feed if you like. They have those monitors up, but then if you decide you want to see what's happening on the other side of the ring or what the managers or the crowd's doing, like, you have a perspective where, as if you're there, you can look around at everything else.
It's cool.
The people and stuff aren't necessarily to scale, so
yeah,
it doesn't feel totally real because everything's just so big. But it was funny because we're not there, but there's hundreds, if not a couple thousand people in the room, so you still get some chance, and some, like, Cena sucks, let's go Cena, CM Punk, but it's not, I don't know, it's not quite the same, like, rowdiness as if you're actually there. But I'm like yelling into the ether, like, I can see you. I don't see your fucking hair, but I can see you. And people are laughing and shit around me. So
good. Well, you had fun. That's important.
Yeah, it was a cool experience. But if you're in LA and or Dallas and you ever want to check out a live wrestling event from WWE that's not playing in your actual town, I would check out Cosm for a trippy little night. I think you can watch other sports there too. All right, so let's get into the Great American Bash Glory Days from 1989. It was Baltimore, Maryland, 14,000 sold out arena, cheesy 80s graphics and fun 80s music for the intro.
Yeah, dude, that was the first thing I noticed.
Yeah, it was very
like, oh
80s.
my god.
It's
yeah, like if anybody watching this now would be like, oh my god, cheese fest.
Yeah,
but it's great.
It's so perfect funny. Though. Jim Ross and Bob Cowdull on commentary. First event was a $50,000 Triple Crown Battle Royale final.
It sure was.
It's one of those, like, I think Dusty was doing the booking at this time. He had some convoluted ideas.
Yeah, dude, that was I was like, whoa, why are you hitting me with so many rules right now? First match of the card. I'm just like, well, what's happening? Like, I don't care. I'm just gonna watch them fight.
Right. So basically, you're supposed to win $50,000 if you win the match. There's 2 rings. It's kind of like a Royal Rumble style battle royale. If you lose in the first ring, you get to join the second ring where the losers are having like a constellation fight.
The loser fight. Yeah, no, I did actually pay attention, but it was weird because they were only throwing people over the top rope that connected the one ring to the other ring.
Right. So they just throw all the losers into the second ring.
Right. And then in there, it's a battle royal where you actually get thrown over the top rope.
And in theory, ring 1, ring A, we'll call it, has a winner, and ring B has a winner. So you have the winner of the loser ring. You have the guy that was never eliminated. They go after each other. The winner of that then gets $50,000, which is something I saw in WCW, or I see when I watch the old stuff. Like, they'll have like prize fighting for a dollar amount. You never really see that anymore, but
yeah, that's true. Add some realism for sure.
The winner of this was Sid Vicious and Dangerous Dan Spivey, the Skyscrapers.
Yes, it was actually kind of funny how it played out because Sid won in ring A, Spivey won in ring B, and then before they could fight to see who would win, their manager, Theodore Long, who you might recognize as Teddy Long in the WWE,
or Peanut
came
Head.
on the or Peanut Head. Yeah, that was the chant. That's what they were chanting. Yeah, that was funny. So he comes out and gets on the mic and says, "You guys are so stupid. You think I'm going to have my tag team fight each other? We're just going to take the money and split it." And so then the match is just over. I was like, "Oh, okay, it's just over. Cool."
And it took longer to happen than it took for us to explain it. It was a couple minutes long. For that many guys to be eliminated and to have some sort of result out of a match, I mean, it was very, very brief. And we would see Vicious and Spivey come back out, I don't know, a few minutes later and do some sort of tag team match. So they were all over this fucking thing.
Yeah, they saw a lot of people twice, actually. Pretty much everybody who we saw in matches later in the ring, with a few exceptions, they were in this battle royal at the start of the show. So it was kind of strange. It was an interesting start to the event. But once that was over, we had a very quick little interview with Teddy Long, talking about the match that his team was going to be in later. And then we had our second match of the night, which was Flying Brian Pillman against Bill Irwin. And only note I wrote down for this match is Bill Irwin is loud, LOL. Did you hear him just like yelling the whole match? My God.
Come on, Brian. Brian, you want to fly? You want to fly,
Smack.
Brian? Throws his ass out of the ring. He talks the whole match. I mean,
The whole match.
he is just harassing the shit out of Brian. And that's what I wrote too. Wild Bill talking mad shit the entire time, screaming at him. And he's, he's got this like kind of flabby farm boy body, like an old school brawler, loudmouth, just like
still
I just
pretty
like
big though.
fucking eat steaks and like lift weights and talk shit and fucking fight. Like he's on top most of the match, and Brian's kind of fighting underneath until he pulls out a crossbody from the second ring that's just still sort of hanging out.
Yep, that was cool actually. This is something that I noticed. So the way that this match ended, the finish of this match, and the finish of some of the other matches, it was really fascinating to me because, of course, in modern day wrestling, when a match ends, the crowd erupts or boos depending on the result of the match. But the audiences back then, the way that they reacted was very differently. That throughout the entirety of the match, there's just sort of this like base level of noise, and it goes up and it goes down as things happen throughout the match. But with this finish and with some of the other finishes, the ref counts to 3 and the crowd erupts and they get so loud and they're so excited. And I feel like modern crowds, it's not the same. Like they get excited, but there's just something about it. Back then, like that was the moment. That was what you were always building towards. Sometimes in matches nowadays, of course, the counting to 3 and finishing the match, ringing the bell gets everybody excited. But I oftentimes feel like the highest spot in a match isn't always the finish nowadays.
Right.
And I feel like back then in this specific pay-per-view, most of the highest moments of the match were that 1, 2, 3 at the end.
Yeah, and big finishers, usually people aren't going to kick out of them. And when you have a big 9-match card, you got to fly through the matches. There's not a lot of space in between. But yeah, Brian got that cross body from the other ring, scores a pin, 1, 2, 3, big pop. And then they don't waste any time going into Paul E. Dangerously promo. It's funny to see Paul Heyman. He's looking spry. He's young.
Got an incredible mullet.
Yeah, he's everyone in this whole thing has mullets, mostly blonde mullets. Paul's is darker mullet. But yeah, he's referencing the Jim Cornette scaffold match from '86, where he of course fell off the scaffold and busted his ACL. He says he doesn't care if he wins. He just wants to hurt Cornette. Then we get through that promo and they go right onto the skyscrapers with Peanut Head Teddy Long versus the Dynamic Dudes.
Dynamic Dudes,
which is righteously late 80s also.
Yeah, and one of those dudes was wasn't it Shane Douglas from ECW?
Yeah, I believe so.
I gotta look it up because I was like, that guy looks like Shane Douglas. Hold on.
Yeah, who's on the
Shane Douglas and Johnny Ace? Yeah,
Ace.
Dynamic
Johnny
Dudes
Ace was the one that worked in the office with Vince while he did some of the dirty stuff.
Oh, it's fucking Laurinaitis. That's
Laurinaitis.
right.
Johnny Ace.
Oh man, I didn't realize that. Dynamic Dudes, Shane Douglas and Johnny Ace. Wow, I did not realize that's who that was. Well, yay for Shane Douglas and boo for Johnny Ace, I say. It's a good thing he lost.
Yes. So the skyscrapers, they seem to be really popular with this crowd. They're the heels, but
Sid was so over with the crowd, and yeah, you're exactly right. They were clearly the bad guys in this tag match, but it seemed like the crowd didn't really like the Dynamic Dudes, and they really, really liked Sid Vicious. It didn't matter what he did. I even heard the crowd saying, "We want Sid" multiple times.
When Dan was in there, they're chanting, "We want Sid" the whole time. So Sid was super over. Teddy Long, of course, gets his interference in there as a heel manager should. I feel like Teddy looks older 40 years ago than he does now at age 77.
I was thinking the same exact thing. He just wasn't taking care of himself. He's like, taking care of himself. He got his teeth fixed.
Yeah.
He realized he doesn't need to, if he was a heel manager, it kind of makes sense that he was like playing up the fact that he was bald because, give somebody something to make fun of him for.
Right.
But I thought the same exact thing. I was like, wait, this is from 1989. He looks worse then than he does now, but good for him, man.
Oh, this was actually the match where the crowd was yelling Peanut Head at Teddy Long. and they were so like they had so much conviction with their fingers pointing right at him in the front row. Peanut head, which I've never really heard anyone call a bald guy peanut head before. I don't know where that came from, but
it was funny. And the way the camera angle,
yeah,
they had a So, for those of you who can't or haven't watched this yet, there while the crowd is calling Teddy Long a peanut head, they cut to a camera angle of him where he is showing off the triple crown that the Skyscrapers won in the Battle Royale, and the camera is angled above his head, so it's just pointing down at his bald head. And he's like, stop pointing the camera down there. Look at my face. This is all that matters. Can I just say, that fucking paper crown was the worst prop I have ever seen. He's like, this is all that matters. I'm like, dude, that's made out of plastic.
Yeah.
Like, come on, guys. We could get a better crown than this.
Burger King crown or something.
Yeah, dude. It was like exactly like a Burger King crown with some fake jewels on it. It made me laugh super hard.
So the Skyscrapers win again. It's a big day for them. They've now won two out of 3 matches on this one pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking up. I don't know a lot about the Skyscrapers, but it looks like The Undertaker would join the Skyscrapers eventually. Of course, as Mean Mark Callis.
Yeah.
And so I guess there was a little group that had a few guys in and out, but it sounds like it was brief. And it also got me thinking about, had you heard about Sid Vicious's obsession of softball, and how everyone rumors that all the old timers say that he would skip matches to play softball, that he would threaten to leave to play softball, that he would put it in his contract that he needed softball
God.
that he's just this huge dude who just goes and like cracks home runs. And that's really all he ever cared about, was just cracking home runs at like slow pitch softball. And when he died last year, you know, I heard a few of the old timers like telling stories about him, and then it always comes out the broken leg and the how he was unreliable because you were always competing against his like local softball team. Yeah,
that's amazing. I feel like they had an A&E documentary about him in the last couple years that
cool.
You know, those ones that the WWE tends to do.
Yeah.
I feel like I watched it because I do remember that he was weirdly into softball, but I didn't know the extent to which he was into softball. That's amazing.
I found a YouTube video here from the Hannibal TV back in 2018 where they asked him about the rumors that his love for softball interfered with his wrestling career. If you want me to play that clip real quick, I can play this video.
Yeah, let's do it.
That wasn't true either. What happened on that was this.
What?
Started back a long time ago when I worked for WCW. All right, I had my lung surgery where I had a hole in my lung. They had to cut part of my lung away, so I lost a lot of weight, almost 70 pounds. So I was gaining my weight back, and I flew in. They looked at me. Actually, they had Terry Funk fly in one time to look at me. And Devin, I didn't even know I could drive that day, but I was scared not to drive because I was afraid I was going to lose my job. So I picked him at the airport, made one loop around the airport, and I dropped him off. And I don't know what Terry Funk said, but they didn't fire me or didn't make a big deal about me being that skinny. So I put my weight on, went to see them. They looked at me and said, no, we want you to put a little more weight on.
Where's
so I go back home, and I'm just, I'm working out every day, eating 15 times a day, and working out 2 or 3 times a day. And so during my time off, I played a little softball. And then, I'm only guessing at this point, but I think it was Jerry Lawler. Of course, he played a lot of softball, and he saw me out there all the time. And all of a sudden, the office calls me and says, what the fuck are you doing playing softball? I said, well, man, I wasn't told not to play. I was told to put on some weight. All right, so Ole was the booker. He said, okay, for your punishment, they're going to have you come in, and you're going to put Lex Luger over in 5 seconds. Now, Devin, you got to realize I was either out for 7, 8 months. When somebody's paying me, big money to sit at home, that 30 seconds, I probably got paid $200,000 for that. So I'm not going to worry about putting Lex over. That's something I never worried about, is putting people over. All right, so that's where it started. And then the next time it came about was when I had, I guess everybody knows the story that I had my fill with the WWF at the time, and I told Vince I wasn't going to be there anymore. And it took me about 3 or 4 months to get out of my contract where I could go back to WCW. And during that time, I played some softball.
And
so those are the two times I played softball when I wasn't wrestling. Any other time than that never happened. No, I played when I came home on my days off, but it never affected the business, you know.
And during that time, I played some softball.
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Sounds like it's all overblown, but I feel like now we've gotten the word from Sid from Beyond the Grave about his softball.
So after the Dynamic Dudes versus the Skyscrapers, we got a quick little Cornette promo responding to Paulie Dangerously. And then we had the match, Paulie Dangerously versus Jim Cornette in a manager tuxedo match. Paul E. Dangerously is very clearly the bad guy, and Cornette is the babyface. The crowd stood up and applauded when Cornette walked in.
With his Jeffrey Dahmer glasses and his bow tie and his blue tux.
His frilly shirt. Yeah, I'm sure there's a name for the type of frills that are on his dress shirt, but I don't know what it is. It was a pretty funny match. I don't even know if I would call it a match. It was just like a...
Well, it's a tuxedo match. The goal is to declothe, disrobe the other person.
Your opponent, yeah. They're both wearing different tuxedos, and the loser is the one who has to walk out of the ring in their skivvies. So the match begins with some wild punches. Paulie E. Dangerously throws some powder in Cornette's face and goes after Cornette's injured knee from the scaffold match incident. It was fun, you know. I mean, it wasn't like a match, but the crowd was invested. They did not want Paulie to win, and they wanted Cornette to win. So, I had fun. Something that made me laugh about it was there was a moment where Cornette was punching Paulie, and the crowd did the punch count spot. They were counting his punches, which was kind of funny. You know, you don't see that as much in the older videos as you do in the current day stuff. So
was he standing up on the turnbuckle at that?
I don't even know if he was. I think Paulie was just like on his knees, and Cornette was just sitting while standing. They were in the ring.
This match was the reason that I chose to watch this pay-per-view. I just really wanted to see those two legendary managers in a match, because I know that Cornette's trained wrestlers and, you know, managed wrestlers and done a lot of booking. He's also famously, you know, critical of wrestlers and their work. So I kind of wanted to see how he worked. And it's a silly match, but I will say that like the punches looked really good. It didn't look all that fake. It was kind of like a sloppy mud wrestling meets bar fight sort of style, but they did throw a lot of punches, and they didn't look all that bad for two guys that are never in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the slaps that Paulie got on Cornette, I think he was just slapping his face because it was loud, you know. So Paul E, you know, he's a round little feller now, but you know, back then, he once they disrobe him, he's got a body better than Jey Uso does, who's challenging for the world title at WrestleMania. So
full of piss and vinegar today.
I mean, he does, right?
He was in good shape. I mean, he was also 40 years younger than he is now, almost. 35.
Right. So who would have thought? Maybe Jey Uso has a future as a short, round, little angry manager.
And after a bit of back and forth and a second attempt from Paulie Dangerously to throw powder in the eyes of Cornette, Cornette was able to kick Paulie's hand. The powder goes in Paulie's face, and Cornette wins the match by disrobing Paul.
Cornette gets his pants, and Paul runs out in his blue tighty whities. You know, so ding, ding, ding. And we get to match 4, which is a Texas Tornado tag team match. No need to tag, no DQ, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
It's Mike Rotunda, father of the Wyatts, and
Bray Wyatt, Bo Dallas,
future IRS character, Erwin R. Shyster, which is what I knew him from in the WWF. Yep. He's with Kevin Sullivan, and they are wrestling the Steiner brothers, Rick and Scott Steiner, obviously the parents of, or the dad and the uncle of Braun Breaker, because like it says at the beginning of the Cody Rhodes intro, if you listen really closely, wrestling has more than one Nepo baby.
Yep, it was a fun match, a fun tornado tag match. The crowd was really excited about this one.
And there was a lady and a dog there too with Rick and Scott.
There was. I could also hear the crowd barking like a dog, and for all the people that watch nowadays, that's where that came from. That's why they bark for Braun Breaker, because they barked for his dad, Rick Steiner, the dog-faced gremlin.
It's crazy how many parents are in this thing, right? Because this entire event was booked by Dusty, Cody's dad, and now you've got Bray Wyatt's dad and Braun Breaker's dad. Like you really see like the old.
Later on, we got Jay and Jimmy's dad, Rikishi.
Yeah, we've got a lot of dads in this thing that are
Brian Pillman Jr., or I guess Lexis King now in NXT. That was a big, an exciting part of watching this. Watching from this time period, watching events from this time period is always fun for me, because not only do I see people that I saw when I was younger, but I see people that I've learned about who are directly related to the people that we're watching now. We as wrestling fans really like our history. And so, I always enjoy this type of stuff for that reason. We didn't talk about, Scott Hall was in the Battle Royal. Pre Razor Ramon with his big, huge handlebar mustache and his curly blondish hair.
Yeah, that Battle Royale was just a lot of dudes, a lot of white guys with blonde mullets. And so
Ron Simmons.
And Ron Simmons.
Ron Simmons.
I know I watched again the whole thing over again briefly, just kind of in the background. I was like, okay, there was some diversity on this card, but yeah, it's a lot of white guys with blonde mullets and
Ron Simmons.
Ron Simmons. But going back to this match with the Steiner brothers versus Mike and Kevin, it was super fast paced. It's just right away they got tables. They're fighting on the outside. Rick Steiner gets crotched on the railing like right away. Crowd's barking like crazy. It's quick. It's over quick. But so far,
it was like 7 minutes long.
It might have even been shorter. Yeah, it was fast.
4 minutes and 22 seconds. My goodness.
Steiner gets the pin on Sullivan with the double team crossbody. But at this point in the pay-per-view, I'm like, I kind of like this. There's a lot of matches. They don't fuck around. They get in, they get out. You know who the good guy is. You know who the bad guy is. You hit a really good move on somebody. Like, they're not kicking out. We move right along to the Gary Hart promo and the Sting promo. Gary Hart he's kind of like a menacing, dark character. Like, he kind of reminds me of like Anton LaVey or something, like the 90s like satanic church leader. Like, he has that bald head and creepy teeth and stuff.
Yeah, I didn't recognize this guy. I guess I must have not watched a lot of things with him in them being a manager. But yeah, he was unnerving.
yeah, he's a creepy guy. Sting, he's never really been a great promo, even though he's kind of the face of WCW. Like, his personality is flat. But
he was being kind of different in this promo too. Like, he even said, like, I'm going to stay calm because, like, I've got a serious fight against the Great Muta ahead of me,
Yeah.
This next match, Sting versus Great Muta for the World Television Championship. This was the first match that I felt was like the stakes were raised. Like, every match before this was exciting, of course, and the crowd was behind them. But this was the first match where I felt like the crowd was super, super hot, really, really into it, really in the corner of Sting.
Right.
The first note I wrote about this match is Sting is over AF.
Yeah. He's the world champion, and here's a world champion match. But the catch is the Great Muta, or as Jim Ross kind of calls him, the Great Muta, or whatever, is undefeated.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of like, is this the end of this guy's undefeated streak?
Or is Sting going to get dethroned? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but Sting looks great. He comes out, the tassels, the glitter, he's in orange and green. He's the champion. Also, they're both in face paint. It's face paint against face paint. I thought it was interesting when Sting was wrestling Muta and he just gives him a basic clothesline. All of a sudden it became an American clothesline. I was like, oh, when you clothesline an Asian guy, it becomes an American clothesline.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this to me was the best match at this point in the card. This to me was the best match so far in terms of like the flow, giving things time to breathe, getting the crowd truly behind everything that's happening, and kind of an interesting end. You know,
Yeah.
Sting gets the pin. But they start talking about how there's a little bit of controversy because it looked like somebody's shoulders were on the mat or somebody's weren't always on the mat.
Uh-huh.
And so Muta takes the belt and leaves, and the crowd chants bullshit, which I thought was really funny too, because that's like a modern day thing. But then we saw the replay, and I was like, I don't see what you guys are seeing. Like this whole controversy thing did not work for me. I think they tried to make it work and it didn't really. I would have preferred just a clean little thing, or like not going back to the instant replay, because when you go back and show something that you're trying to pick apart, like you always run the risk that somebody's going to pick it apart the wrong way. Because to me, I was like, it looks fine. I don't. Sting's shoulders were clearly off the bat.
Yeah,
Muta's were on. I don't see how this is controversial.
Well, they didn't want to end the undefeated streak of Muta, and they didn't want to take the belt off of Sting. But I feel like, the thing that I had an issue with was before that. It's like Muta spits poison mist at Sting, misses
in the ref's eyes.
It's the fucking ref. So the ref knows that he's used, some sort of foreign toxins to assault the ref. When the ref woke up, he should have said you're DQ'd, But instead, he's sitting there counting when he can't see. How's he supposed to see whose shoulders are down? The guy's been fucking pepper sprayed. I mean, that's where my issue was. But I mean, they got out of it. They left it undecided, contested and undecided at the end. But it was fun getting up to that point. Then we go straight into a Lex Luger promo. He's the U.S. champion. Title that
he's a heel.
It's a title that still exists today in WWE. I think it's held by LA Knight right now, right?
No, it's Shinsuke now. It's Shinsuke. Yeah, he took it from LA Knight, but I think LA Knight just actually qualified for another match against Shinsuke to maybe get it back. So we'll see how that goes.
I see. So we get the Lex Luger promo, and then we go into the Ricky Steamboat versus Lex Luger in a no DQ match, which is how it's announced. But
before we talk about the stip, can we talk about Ricky's entrance? Because my God, this man was standing on a giant plank of wood holding some sort of giant lizard through the entire walkway.
Yeah, I guess it's some kind of like lizard dragon because he's Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. I guess huge.
Yeah, like a dragon. Oh, like a Komodo dragon. Maybe it was a Komodo dragon.
Yeah.
But also
huge live lizard with like its mouth taped, which is maybe that's where Jake. This is before Jake came out with the snakes all the time, right?
Yeah.
So this might have been like kind of an influence on that. I don't know, but gnarly, like terrifying looking lizard. A lizard.
He was wearing a leather vest too, in case you didn't notice. That Komodo dragon was properly dressed for the occasion.
Oh yeah. God, dude.
Oh man, but okay, yeah. So the stip that you were talking about in the promo that Luger gave before the match, he was like, "Yeah, I'm the U.S. champion, and I don't have to fight if I don't want to. So, like, Ricky, you need to make this not a non-DQ match, or else I'm gonna leave and we're not gonna fight." And then he comes to the ring after Ricky. He has this little thing where he gets on the mic and he's like, "I'm not going to do it unless it's a regular match," and blah, blah, blah. And then, like after a minute of stuff happening off the mic, then the announcer's like, "Okay, it's not a no DQ match anymore. It's just regular." And then the match starts. And I'm like, well, what was the point of that? That was another thing that just
the point was, we knew at that point, obviously, I wrote down, okay, so we know how this match is going to end with a DQ. And we know the titles don't change hands with a DQ, so they kind of just gave us the whole finish in that controversy. But it also, there's a story behind it.
It played into the finish. Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah. I mean, it's just like without knowing that, though.
Right.
I'm just thinking, like, of me watching it for the first time, I'm like, well, what did that solve? And I guess my mind didn't jump to the conclusion that yours did, which is like, oh, that's going to play into the finish, which now that you're saying it, and of course, now that I watched it, I was like, oh, yeah, obviously. But at the time, I was like, this is kind of a weird thing.
I thought Luger was going to be, I figured Luger was going to be down and then just get DQ'd on purpose so he didn't have to let the
like
title
he would
switch
be,
hands.
yeah, like he would attack.
But you know what? He's not that bright, because I remember later on in the 90s, the Lex Express ended with a match with him versus Yokozuna, and he threw Yokozuna out of the ring for the 10 count, just celebrating with balloons that he was.
That's right. I remember.
And they had to come tell him, like, titles don't change hands with DQ.
With countouts, yeah.
Or with countouts. So I was like, wait, he doesn't even, in my mind, he doesn't even understand all that shit. So it ends with a chair. It's Luger's idea to hit Steamboat with the chair, but Steamboat gets to use it first, and he gets disqualified, leaving their feud to be resolved at another time, I assume. But
dude, can I just say, there was a part of this match that I thought was really, really weird, and I'm glad that it doesn't happen as much in modern day wrestling. There was a spot where Luger was in the corner and Steamboat was punching him, and the referee came over and stopped Ricky Steamboat from punching Luger and like pulled his arm and took him out of the way. He like blocked a punch, which then allowed Luger to punch Steamboat. And I was like, what the hell was that? Like that is a referee being way too involved in a match. Maybe it must have been more commonplace back then. I assume that it was, but as a modern day viewer, I'm like, why are you touching a wrestler?
Yeah.
Like, you should not be doing that.
Yeah, it's weird. Just do your little count, threaten to disqualify them, but you don't usually see them throw them off of the other person.
There was also another time too, this doesn't matter, it's just made me laugh, when the referee was counting for Luger pinning Steamboat, did like a normal speed, count. It was a 2 count. But then Ricky got a reversal or something 30 seconds to a minute later, and the ref's count was like, boom, boom. And I was like, what? That was the most inconsistent count. You just counted for a baby face so fast.
Yeah.
Dude, you got to get your shit under control. Like, get your rhythm good. Just keep it consistent,
You can play as the referee on those WWE 2K24 like PlayStation games.
Oh, that's funny.
And if you do uneven counts, you get
they'll get mad at you.
Well, like Gorilla will send a new ref down, and you'll like lose. You'll get a different ref. You're tossed out. So
that's so cool.
So you can actually practice like fairness and you can pull a screw job and all that stuff. But
yeah, that's really funny.
They get really deep with these video games now. But I thought Steamboat's obviously a really good worker, and I was interested to see him again. Lex Luger is kind of known for being like the top body in wrestling and ex-football guy with basic power moves. So it's kind of a good combo just to see the big bulky power move guy versus the ring savvy dude. Great chest chops. Like, they didn't seem like they were waiting for each other to chop. It seemed like they were both just going at it, which I feel like today that looks so kind of hokey when they're just like, hit me, I hit you, hit me, I'm waiting for you. Like, they were more kind of going at it.
I don't like the trading. There's a lot more like, let me stand here and take punishment, and now you stand there and take the punishment I give you in modern day. Yeah, I agree that Steamboat has great chops, and back then they were always just like rapid fire. I thought this was a really, really fun match. It's just a weird ending. I think it's funny. Like, we saw a lot of finishes in this pay-per-view that we just don't see anymore.
Yeah.
And some of them I understand why we don't see them anymore, but others I'm like, that would be fun. I wish we'd go back to some of this.
How about this Fabulous Freebirds promo that came on next? It's like,
oh my God,
classic cocaine infused 1980s I don't know what they're saying, but it's a vibe. Like curly mullets, sunglasses, Samoans, screaming, slobbering, pacing, shaking,
gnawing on each other.
Yeah, dude, you're like, what the fuck?
It was great. It was great. Yeah. This is a crazy, I actually, I didn't do any research about the pay-per-view before I watched it. I didn't want to know what the matches were. So I didn't even know there was a War Games match in this until it happened. And I was like, oh shit, here we go. And the fabulous Freebirds and the Samoan SWAT team had their promo first, which as you said was cocaine fueled and almost incomprehensible. And then we had the promo of the baby faces, the Midnight Express, the Road Warriors, and Dr. Death Steve Williams,
which was a lot more screaming and slobbering.
Yes, but slightly more coherent. And then we got to the War Games match, which was pretty fun. First thing I noticed was, man, the ceiling of that cage is very, very low. These guys are going to hit their head on something.
Yeah, they don't have a top on the War Games cage anymore, right? I mean, you're disqualified if you leave the cage, but yeah, back then it was like you were caged in. It was probably what, 8 feet, 7 feet above.
Yeah, it really wasn't that tall. It was an interesting, a very interesting match, because although we see War Games matches nowadays once a year, they've changed quite a bit. The thing that I enjoyed the most that was different from what it is like now is all of the teams being outside of the ring and, talking smack to each other through the cage, and the managers are there too, and they're talking strategy. I like that, because nowadays, all the teams are in their own little shark cages up by the entrance, and there's not as much fun. You don't get to play with, the inside outside aspect of it as much.
Yeah, they're all there. The managers are out.
They're calling plays. They're like writing things down on paper.
I don't think they don't bring weapons in like today. It's like you kind of bring a weapon in on your way down. There's none of that. Like the ring is kind of, the cage is a weapon of sorts.
It's the weapon.
That's sort of what makes it dangerous. Yeah. In fact, Dr. Death lifted Gordy of the Freebirds up and slammed him like right over above his head. Starts slamming him against the roof of the cage. Like, he's a strong ass dude. Gordy is huge.
Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he was so tall. My goodness, there are a lot of big dudes in this match.
And War Games is another like Dusty creation. I mean, we've seen it enough. We kind of understand the rules. It's a little convoluted. You're bringing another wrestler in every couple of minutes, and then there's several moments where there's an unfair advantage, and that unfair advantage was determined by a coin toss that was off the screen before the match. And then once everyone's in the ring, then just whichever team scores the pinfall first wins. But Jim Ross was great at sort of explaining what was happening. Commentary
and
was
strategy.
They played the commentary pretty straight on this one. I feel like Jim Ross keeps you kind of in the know. I think Bob Caudolo's, he wasn't very interesting, kind of dry, but there was no like kind of Jerry Lawler like heel commentary, anything like that. They were really playing it like a real sporting event.
Yeah, it was the show as a whole, commentary included, was very different from the show that we discussed last episode. It's WCW, it's 1989. The production is simpler. It's more sports based. It's, there's not the pageantry of WWF. It's grittier. It's meant to be an athletic thing. And that's how Jim Ross, I feel like, commentates.
Yeah. He explained it. What you're watching now is a demolition derby with human bodies. So like, okay, I get that. And that's kind of how the fighting was. It was just all punches and slamming each other against the cage for the majority of this.
But a fun match, and crowd was hot again. They really wanted to see the bad guys lose.
Hawk wins for his team by putting Jimmy Garvin in a neck breaker. He sort of picked him up from behind and kind of strangled him over his own back.
That was cool. I hadn't seen that before.
It looked cool. It looked gnarly.
Painful.
It looked brutal. Yeah. I was like, dude, he's gonna rip this guy's throat right off of his shoulders. But and then Animal gets stuck in the cage with the heels and sort of gets the beat down. So it was wild. There was a lot of chaos going on in there. And the Road Warriors came out on motorcycles, so
That's right.
That
yeah.
happened in 1989, like long before we saw it with the Undertaker. I don't know if anybody else was riding up in motorcycles and wrestling. That was
They did
cool.
it in the WWF too when they were the Legion of Doom. I just don't remember what that pay-per-view was, but I remember it was one of the ones that was outside during the daytime. I remember the Road Warriors motorcycling to the ring.
Right.
But yeah, fun match, and then leading up to the main event, which was Ric Flair versus Terry Funk for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Ric Flair's really serious in his promo. I've never seen him. He's like the opposite of the promo we saw with the Wild Guys from the last match. He's calm. He's serious,
and kind of like it was kind of a babyface promo too, like in a way, because I guess he was the babyface at this point. Terry Funk is clearly the heel, clearly getting booed, and clearly a psychopath, which was great.
Right. Ric Flair's he's got concerns over his health. He doesn't know if his neck could handle another match. I guess if only they knew, he'd still be wrestling 40 years later or whatever, you know. But yeah, he's serious. It's a title match. Terry Funk's got creepy old Gary Hart in his corner, so that guy's back out there. Flair at this time is a 6-time world champion.
Yeah, I think he was the winningest champion at this point.
I think they mentioned someone else that had won.
Harley Race.
Yeah. Okay, so but he walks. Ric Flair walks out with golden streaming fireworks and a purple sequenced robe and 2 women on each arm, full on styling and profiling,
kissing women in the audience as he walks by.
I mean, dude, full on Ric Flair. And it starts off intense outside of the ring. Terry Funk starts swinging on him, and Jim Ross is sort of doing that thing, that a tactic that AEW kind of uses today. That's right at the beginning. He's like, and I've got word that we can keep this match going as long as we need to. We've got approval from the cable company. You're like, oh wow, this one might go all night. The camera shots look cool on this match. I see a couple times it was kind of cinematic, like cameras real low down on ringside. And I mean, for 1989, you know, it's a smoky room, wild vibes, like bright lights. You can see everyone in the crowd. Like it looked kind of cool.
Totally, yeah, really fun vibe, but at the same time, just like very gritty. Amidst all of the cinema, there was, it got brutal. I think both men got busted open in this one, didn't they?
Yeah, and I guess Ric Flair got the figure 4 on Funk, and Funk somehow gets a branding iron while the ref is distracted from Gary Hart. Yeah, then Flair ends up with some color. He's got blood all through his blonde mullet, which is kind of classic Ric Flair to have blonde hair but it's all splattered in crimson. Yeah. Funk chokes Ric Flair with a rope. They're slamming each other around on the cement. They've got the pads pulled up. I wrote down that Flair bleeds more often than John Moxley, so he's
especially now.
Yeah, I wonder if Moxley does he. I don't know if he still bleeds in every match, but I wonder because Flair kind of bled in every match, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, back then everybody bled so much more often than they do now, except for Moxley. But Moxley hasn't bled. Moxley hasn't bladed in months. Like, I honestly can't even remember the last time.
Since he
finally realized he was being a moron.
Yeah, maybe since he's gotten the title that he's never worn, he's stopped bleeding. I don't know. But
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
But yeah, I always just tie it to the current product. I'm like, oh yeah, like I know someone that does that just as much today.
Way too much. Yeah.
Not to put Flair and Moxley in the same camp. They're very different.
No.
But
no.
Flair wins with the reverse cradle, and then the Great Muta comes in to spray.
Yeah, shit gets real crazy as soon as this kind of reminded me of the end of the Stadium Stampede pay-per-view, because as soon as the 1, 2, 3 hits and we have a winner, it just gets even crazier. Muta comes down and he misses Flair, and then the fighting continues and continues, and it moves all over the arena.
Yeah, Great Muta sprays Flair with the mist that he's already sprayed, 2 other people earlier with. Now Flair's got his blonde bleached hair, and he's got
red and green.
Red all over one side of the face and green mist on the other side of the face. He's just looking fucking nuts, dude.
Yeah, he went a little crazy.
Sting comes in to save Flair. They fight off into the back. Women are like trying to get away from the bloody men as they book it back to the back. I've been bled on in the first row at a wrestling show. I don't know if you've ever been bled on at one of these places, but it fucking ruins your night. It's where the fun ends. It's fun to watch other people bleed. When they bleed on you, it's fucking awful. So I don't mind those chicks running away. Like you go to a show, you don't think you're gonna be a part of it, that you're gonna get blood all over you, and then you're just sitting there looking at this fucking sweaty guy's blood on your hand. Like, what do I go do?
What do I do with this? Yeah, I think the only time I ever was interacted with in that way was when the New Day threw a pancake at me during a Monday Night Raw that I caught. But other than that,
yeah. See, I go to these GCW shows and sometimes sit in the front because and
you catch blood drops, I catch pancakes.
Yeah, they just bootios. I don't know what a bootio is, but I'd rather have a pancake than any food that has the word booty in it.
That's fair.
Yeah, so that was kind of the final image. That whole he does a promo with all the blood and the green spray and everything on his face, and
that's like the Flair I remember, where he's just yelling. He's just eyes are wide, and he's just Funk. I'm gonna get
he's hyped,
yeah.
Yeah, he promises more with Funk, hanging out with Sting. So that was Great American Bash 89. So my final thoughts on it were, it was a fast-moving card, all killer, no filler. I really liked it. I wish things kind of moved at this pace nowadays. I think a nine match card sometimes gets a little tiresome, or you kind of want to get away, like take a bathroom break or skip a mid-card match. But this one moved along pretty quickly. Intense atmosphere, bright lights on the audience. You could see every single person in the crowd.
Yeah.
They were loud. I thought there was like almost no diversity, like I mentioned before. Like it seemed like everyone was a white guy in this, but yeah, there was like the Great Muta, the Samoans, there was Ricky Steamboat. So they had a handful of like Asian dudes. Not a lot of black guys for a card with this many fucking people.
Yeah, just in the battle royal at the beginning.
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah, and Peanut Heads, Teddy Long. So Paul Heyman, that's kind of diversity. His parents were Holocaust survivors. So, wrestling has so many people from so many backgrounds now. And it's kind of like everyone's represented. It's like one place where I feel like, there's not like one group that sort of has a stronghold on like this is wrestling. And back then it kind of did look like a white man thing. And somebody might have been doing something to keep it that way. I kind of went down a Reddit like rabbit hole about like all the different.
It's dangerous, man.
All the different things, like complaints that like black wrestlers have had with NWA and Jim Crockett and WCW. So
I have no doubt. I mean, if you think about where wrestling originated in the carnivals of the early 1900s, I mean, not good. I like you am much happier that there is a lot more diversity, and that we don't even really talk about it. It just is what it is. People are there. You see all different kinds of people, and that's the way the world is. That's the way life is. So yeah, I agree. It was a fun show. It was very different from the first thing that we watched. It was WCW as opposed to WWF. It was 7 years earlier than the first thing we watched. And, it was different in its presentation. The WWF is very much entertainment and spectacle. And while this was entertaining and had spectacular moments, it's what we think of, I think, or maybe what people thought of wrestling as back then. It sort of fits that bill a little more. But it still was very enjoyable. It was fun to look back on the past and see some people that I hadn't seen in a while. And also, remind myself of the ways that wrestling has gotten better and some of the things from the past that maybe we could use more of nowadays. I think we're going to find a lot of times that when we watch these, it's going to be a mixture of the nostalgia, of noticing things that don't really happen too much anymore, whether that's for a good or a bad reason. And then, reminding us of why we love this in the first place, because there's really nothing like being in that crowd and cheering for somebody that you want to win and booing for somebody that you want to lose.
Yeah, I think between the brutality of an early War Games match, the Flair Funk bloodbath, the Sting versus Muta controversy, and the the Steamboat Lizard entrance. You know, we ended up with a high energy, violent, chaotic event with pretty legendary talent and some memorable moments.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest watching it. I mean, I had never seen it before. I just heard about the tuxedo thing, so I thought we put it on, see how it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this was the first American Bash that was done under the WCW name. They're still referring to the event as the NWA because at that time NWA was the governing body of the territories, and WCW bought Crockett. So you don't really hear WCW in the thing. It's just it's all NWA this, NWA that. So that's kind of an interesting transitional time too. Yeah, check it out. I think it's like episode 3 on Great American Bash on Peacock, right?
Yeah,
season 3, episode 1.
Yeah, that's I think how they do it. Season 3, episode 1.
Should we get to some emails?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let me see. Oh, I don't want to read all of these. Let's just pull a couple. Oh, my buddy Peter in St. Louis wrote to us. Let's see. Peter says, the new wrestling podcast is great. He says, I love that 97 shit. Hit me up if you do SummerSlam 94, which is Undertaker versus Undertaker. That sounds fun. I don't know if you're aware or if you remember when there were 2 Undertakers.
What? You're telling me there was a SummerSlam 94, 2 Undertakers. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, 2 Undertakers. Vinny from the Bronx says, I can't do a Bronx accent. Who are these 2 now who think they know wrestling? Well, Vinny, we're just 2 dudes that have fun talking about wrestling, and we don't think we're anybody special.
Nah.
But
I'm just a guy who's been watching since I was a kid. I like to think of myself as an intelligent person, so I watch critically. I like learning things, so I try to educate myself. If you don't like me, you don't like me, but I like me, and I like talking about wrestling, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I feel like I watch so much wrestling in a week, you know, like I watch it pretty much every night. I love watching the old shit. I'm like, if I'm going to watch all this wrestling, like, let's do something. Let's make something. Let's
talk about it.
Something. Yeah. So yeah, I'm having fun with it. But someone who wasn't having fun with it was Robert on Instagram, who said, these guys are boring. So
that's fine. I'll accept that.
If you guys, we have a hotline. You can cut a promo on us and tell us how boring we are and how we don't know as much as Vinny in the Bronx does about wrestling. You can just call the number and leave a promo, cut a promo on us. It's 626-657-SLAM. For Vinny, I'll help you spell that. SLAM, 626-657-SLAM. You can leave us an email. It's just Grapple City Pod. For Vinny, again, that's POD is how you spell pod, at gmail.com or at Grapple City Pod on social media. You can talk all the smack you want, suggest what we should watch next.
Yeah, please.
Give us your thoughts on the show, whatever you want to do. What are we watching next, Aaron?
What are we watching next? I think we're going to watch the very first King of the Ring. And if I'm not mistaken, that was 1993's King of the Ring, the very first King of the Ring professional wrestling pay-per-view.
Sounds fun to me. I don't think I've seen it. That's part of the fun of this show is I get to see a lot of stuff that I haven't gotten around to yet.
All right, so that is going to do it for this episode of Grapple City Rewind. Thank you all for listening. We've had a great time talking about this pay-per-view, and we look forward to chatting with you next time about King of the Ring 1993.
All right, thank you, everybody.